Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to r/MaliciousCompliance, where people on purpose follow orders to spite someone. And in today's episode, it's all about bad bosses getting taught lessons, and one new Karen boss learns the hard way to not yell at a worker. Guys, I hope you enjoy the stories. Hit subscribe if you're not subscribed. And as always, you can send or link your post to this email right here. Let's dive in. So I've been a mechanic for nearly 15 years. I'm the lead tech in my shop, and my company just sold recently to a different corporation, and with that came a new boss. Here's a little bit of history about new boss. The guy's 22 years old, and he's the son of one of my older bosses, so everyone suspects a bit of nepotism at play. The older boss was ruthless and a jerk, and really put a dent in my confidence about being a mechanic, so I may hold somewhat of a grudge against the family, but I try my best to move on and do my job. The new boss and I have had some minor issues already in the 3 months he's been here, but I'm the type of person who can generally put my feelings to the side if the money keeps ending up on my paycheck. Today, however, that changed. Now I will admit, I'm not the most organized person. I have ADHD, and at 33 years old, I'm still learning to function without the medicine I weaned off at 26. My toolbox is normally cluttered, but I keep all my tools in my area or on top of my box. It's the system that works for me. So with that said, this morning I clocked in, and I was about to unlock my box when the new boss comes up to me and screams in my face saying, "You will not be working on cars today until your box is organized." So I said to him, my box is organized in the way that works for me. He then shot back with, "That's not good enough for me or my company. I need to be able to find tools when I need them, and it needs to look neat and orderly." At that, I paused for a second, and I say to him, "So you're telling me that you need to be able to find my tools that I purchased when you need to use them? I don't remember signing that agreement." He then nodded and muttered something about insubordination, and that he would be passing off all of the work to the other technician until it was completed to his satisfaction. Now, I assumed he was bluffing until 3 cars came in, and all 3 tickets were handed to the other tech. Now, I don't have any problem being told to clean up, and I would have done it his way, but I had a problem with his tone, and he was messing with my paycheck. So while he was in the back doing tire inventory, I opened the top drawer of my toolbox, spread my arms, and swept every single thing into the drawer that I could. I repeated for the second and third drawer until the top was clean. I used the same process for both of my smaller carts until each one could be closed and locked, and then I clocked out for lunch. I'm currently sitting in my car in the parking lot eating lunch and browsing job listings while watching him try to open all of my drawers to use my tools, because 3 more cars came in, and the other tech can't handle 6 at a time. Man, that boss was definitely going on some sort of weird power trip. And I get it, like stuff should be neat and organized, but honestly, if the work is getting done, why does it matter, right? Like the guy only wanted OP's tools neat so he could find them. And to that, and I'm sure a lot of other people would agree, that boss can F right off. And one more thing, I hope OP goes off to find a better job, because if the boss is being petty to where he's costing OP money by giving away his work, that's a huge issue. And I only say that because I've worked with guys in trades before, and honestly, messing with someone's livelihood is a great way to get a smack to the face. Boss or no boss. So I remembered this today, but it actually happened 5 years ago. My boss Bob was a jerk to me on a good day. I was the only woman working in the warehouse, and he always treated me differently, even though my work ethic was no different than my other 2 coworkers. The 2 other guys I worked with called him old-fashioned, which I think was code for racist, sexist, and homophobic, but he's old, so we'll give him a pass. Anyway, when you have a big Irish Catholic family, sometimes you just have bad years where it seems like more people pass away than normal. This was one of those years for me. 2 of my relatives had passed away in 2 weeks, and we lost others that year too. But it just so happened that those 2 funerals were on consecutive Fridays. The first funeral was my mom's cousin Kate, who passed out of nowhere from a heart attack. We were all surprised and hurt by her passing, and I get the news that her service will be that Friday. And I'm thinking, okay, cool. So I go to my boss and I tell him that I'll have to use one of my bereavement days to attend a funeral. And this is where the BS starts. He asked me who exactly passed, and I tell him. He then tells me very rudely, I might add, that if I read the employee handbook, that I would know that bereavement days are only for if the employee's parents, grandparents, and kids die. So I say, okay, no problem, I didn't know the policy. I then tell him that I'll be taking a vacation day then. He tells me that if I'm requesting a vacation day for a funeral, I have to provide him with a copy of the obituary as proof. Not knowing any better, I say, okay. So that night, I go home, take a photo of the obituary my mom had clipped, emailed to him, got my day off, and I thought all was well. But that weekend, my Aunt Lucy passed away. Now, Aunt Lucy wasn't my biological aunt. She was actually my cousin's grandmother. But my cousin and I were very close growing up, and we spent a lot of time at each other's houses. Aunt Lucy was around a ton when I was growing up, and she passed after battling cancer. I was devastated. So I went into work that Monday a complete emotional mess. I let my boss know that unfortunately, my family had experienced another loss, and that we didn't know when the service would be, but I just wanted to let him and my team know that I might have to take another vacation day this week. So as I'm telling my boss this, I'm crying, and he sort of watches me blurt this stuff out, stone-faced. He then says, okay, and then sends me on my way. Later that day, I get an email from him with again a request for a copy of the obituary. I go to his office and I tell him I don't have a picture of the obituary in the paper, but I do have the funeral home's website I can show him, since my cousin shared it on his Facebook, which also announced that the funeral service would be that Friday. At that, he loses it. He starts throwing insane accusations at me. He's saying that I'm trying to get off work, that I'll go to hell for using a sick excuse like that, and that the woman I showed him has a different last name than me. So clearly I'm not related to her and don't know who she is. My boss even went as far as to say that he won't believe a Facebook post about someone that I could have easily made up to get out of work. He then said to me, the fake crying really adds nothing, and if I knew someone who actually died, I would be crying harder. He then said that there was no way he was going to give me 2 Fridays off in a row to go to funerals. And yes, he did air quotes at that. Now, it is the beginning of a busy season there, and we are swamped. And he says that I'm taking this time off on purpose to F over his business and my coworkers because I'm a lazy millennial. He again accuses me of faking a Facebook post to try to get a 3-day weekend instead of just requesting vacation time like a normal human being. I just walked out crying, and I'm sad to say I didn't have the mentality then to defend myself or tell Bob to go F himself. Later that day, I went and explained to HR what was happening, and she got everything straightened out, and I got my Friday off as a bereavement day, no less. But I was angry and upset, so I formulated a plan fueled entirely by pettiness. First, I dug out my childhood photo albums and I took out every picture with my aunt. My nan loves scrapbooking, so luckily she always took a ton of pictures at family events and gave us disposable cameras all the time. Secondly, I bought a newspaper that had her obituary in it. Third, I took screenshots of her Facebook page with a ton of people with my last name writing goodbye posts on her wall, including my own post. And then on the Friday of her funeral, I took an extra prayer card. That following Monday, I walk into work with my folder full of my aunt. I made copies of everything on the work copiers, which was a fireable offense at that job, and then put it all into a binder. I then walk into my boss's office. Now, I had all weekend to think about this epic speech I was gonna give him, about what a prick he was. But when I got in there, I sadly lost some steam. So I just awkwardly said, "Bob, I quit. You're an a-hole, dude." I then put the binder on his desk, walked to my desk, packed my stuff, and I left. I got calls from the HR lady for weeks asking me to come back. And then my boss reaches out to me with a sad text saying that he and the team miss me and to please come back. I didn't answer anything. I heard that they hired 2 temporary workers for the summer to help out. Even though it was dumb for me to quit with nothing else lined up, I found another job pretty quickly, and I no longer had to work for a complete D-bag. I actually like my boss now. Just this year, I found out from a former coworker that the company had gone under and was bought by another company. I also found out that my old a-hole boss was forced into early retirement because the new company looked through his records and saw that he had several complaints over the decades he worked there. They decided they did not want to deal with him. Guys, first off, what an absolute a-hole boss that guy was, and he honestly should have been reprimanded for that BS. Like, was that not workplace harassment? And secondly, I'm glad Opie stood up for herself and got petty and ended up at a much better place where her boss probably actually values and respects employees. Okay, with that said, a lot of us agree that OP's boss is the bad guy in this, right? Like, he's the a-hole for sure, in my opinion. But this person comments and says otherwise. Guys, let me know if you agree or disagree with this person. This person writes, "Wow, I can understand you, and I do not like you one damn bit. So let me get this right. You felt entitled to a bereavement day for your mom's cousin? No, you got one better than that. And you feel entitled to put extra work on your fellow warehouse workers because your cousin's grandmother died? What a piece of work you are. And then you just walk in and quit the day after the company gives you an unrequired bereavement day. So now your fellow coworkers are in an even greater bind. Nice work. At least when you describe how you worked, you didn't lie, and could only say your work ethic was good. Oh wait, the one thing you bragged about was a lie. A person with work ethic wouldn't walk in and quit after she got what she didn't even deserve. You are a sad sack of crap. I certainly believe that both the warehouse workers and your boss were better without you there. A mom's cousin 1 week and the cousin's grandmother the next. You are pathetic. Oh, and having a large Italian Catholic family means a large family, not extending your work benefits to your cousin's grandmothers. You are a caustic, terrible employee with no sense of ethics. Now that is a wild comment, right? And the first time I read this, guys, I was thinking, nice try, Bob. You're not fooling anyone. And guys, if you thought that one was wild, this person shares a similar story with a heartless boss. So, when I was entry level a long time ago, my boss made me come in the day after I discovered my dog died in my room. I tried to call in a sick day, but the employer wasn't having it. I was only a few weeks into the job, so I had no sick days, and I was fresh off of unemployment and I needed this job. I came in visibly sad, and I tried to ask to go home one more time. The boss didn't care, and told me to, quote, "Man up, it's just a dog." So I was like, F it, and I let my feelings take over. I was openly crying and sobbing at my desk while working on my project, and everyone can see and hear me. I'm literally wiping tears off my face and desk as I work. When asked by my coworkers and people passing by what happened, I told everyone what happened to my dog, and that I didn't even have a chance to take care of her body, so she was lying in my bed, dead, wrapped in my blanket until I could get home. When they asked why I was even at work, I very loudly stated that my manager didn't think it was an acceptable excuse to miss work. Needless to say, she looked like a monster, and I was told by her boss that I would have 2 paid days to mourn and to take care of my dog, and that I shouldn't have had to come in. So I work at a big retail chain, where the stockroom is the Wild West and chaos is the norm. We recently got a new supervisor named Sarah, who seems to think that she's running the Navy SEALs or something. Like seriously, she's obsessed with speed, constantly on us how we need to get things done faster. It doesn't matter if it's done right, as long as it's done fast. So one day, during peak restock time, when we're drowning in boxes, Sarah storms in with her clipboard and her best I'm in charge face. Sarah corners me while I'm halfway through a massive inventory check, and she says to me, "You are taking way too long with these. Just get through them quickly. We don't have time to check every single item, you know." Now, I try to explain that rushing inventory checks is a bad idea, but she cuts me off with a condescending smile and says, "If you can't speed this up, maybe this job isn't the right fit for you." Now, she said that all smug, like she dropped a bombshell. So I think to myself, alright Sarah, if you want speed, let's see how fast things can spiral out of control. So I take her words to heart and decide to follow her instructions exactly. The next day, I'm scheduled for another inventory check. Instead of my usual process where I count everything carefully, I decide to play Sarah's game. I glance at the shelves and make up numbers that seem about right. I don't even bother opening boxes to check if what's inside matches the labels. I just fly through the whole process. I'm just marking items off like I'm speedrunning a video game. What usually takes me 2 hours, I finish in like 20 minutes. So Sarah sees me finish up, and I can see her eyes light up. She then walks over, grinning ear to ear, and she says, "See, that wasn't so hard, was it? If you keep this up, you might even get a bonus this month." And seriously, she's patting herself on the back for her brilliant leadership skills. So fast forward a week, and the store manager Mike calls an emergency meeting. The inventory reports came back, and they were a total disaster. According to the reports, we're missing thousands of dollars worth of products. It looks like we either lost half the stock or we're running some underground black market. Mike's pissed, and the customers are complaining about out-of-stock items, and the regional manager is breathing down his neck. This is when Mike turns to Sarah, and he asks her to explain how this could have happened. Sarah, trying to save face, immediately points at the team, and she says they must have messed up the counts. They weren't thorough enough. She's throwing us under the bus without a second thought. And here's where I decide to strike. I then raise my hand and I say, actually, I did exactly what Sarah told us to do. She said to skip checking the items and to get things done as quickly as possible. I was following her orders. At this, you could hear a pin drop. Mike slowly turns to Sarah, his expression going from confused to furious. He then says, "Is this true?" And Sarah's stammering now. She tries to backtrack saying, well, I didn't mean to skip it entirely. I just meant to speed it up. These guys were at fault. But it's too late. The damage is done. Mike is fuming. He then says to her, so you decide to cut corners on the one thing that affects our bottom line? You do realize that now we have to do a full recount because of this mess, right? And that's exactly what happens. The next day, Sarah and a few unlucky team members spend 12 hours redoing the entire inventory check from scratch. The rest of us get to enjoy watching them sweat it out while we handle our regular duties. As they're counting, I make sure to walk by every so often. And I would ask, need any help speeding things up? I could skip a few checks for you if that helps. And the look on Sarah's face every single time is pure rage mixed with embarrassment. She can't say anything because she knows I did exactly what she asked for. By the end of it, we found thousands of dollars in discrepancies. It turns out rushing through inventory checks leaves a lot of room for errors. Who knew? The regional manager wasn't happy, and Sarah ends up getting a formal warning. She stops harping on us about speed after that, and she even tries to be extra nice whenever I'm around. I guess she realized that maybe, just maybe, some things shouldn't be rushed. And here's the best part. A couple of weeks later, I get a small bonus for outstanding attention to detail in helping this inventory mess. Oh, the irony. Sarah couldn't even look me in the eye when I got the bonus slip. And every single time she walks by me now, I just give her a friendly smile and say, "Don't worry, boss, I'm working as fast as you want." Absolutely savage response. And I love how OP called out Sarah and got her in deep crap after she threw everyone under the bus. Like, it's stories like this that make me smile so hard, guys. A new a-hole boss coming in, thinking they know more than a long-time employee, and they get absolutely ruined. This happened a few months back. I had twisted and sprained my ankle Monday morning, packing up our camp from Labor Day weekend. Having done this a few times in the past, I didn't want to bother having it checked out. Because honestly, who wants to pay $1,000 for urgent care to tell you to rest and ice it? Yay, America. So I go to work on Tuesday. I got morning stuff done and then explained the situation to my boss. I told him that I would need to take the day off because it was swollen and painful, and I needed to rest and be off of it in order for it to heal. Hearing that, he gets in a tizzy because God forbid anyone needs to miss work for anything at all ever, and then snaps at me for not planning to go to the doctor. Wednesday, I go into work, still limping and still wearing improper footwear, as I can only fit my injured foot into a crock without unbearable pain. The first thing my boss says to me is, "Don't you think you should get it checked out? I don't understand why you don't just want to pay for it." So I explain again that I've had this injury in the past. It's definitely not broken, and honestly, not even as swollen as it had been when I've done it before. I tell him that I want to be at work to keep up on things and make everyone's job less difficult, and I would just need to take it easy for a couple of days, which isn't a problem considering that I can do 90% of the job from my desk. This gets met with even more attitude, so I ask if I'll be getting paid sick time for the day I missed yesterday. He says no, not without a doctor's note. Now, you can visibly see the injury clear as day, and I'm trying here, so what the F? I'm fed up by this point, so a little later on, I say, okay, and then leave to go to the doctor's for the note he wants so badly, knowing full well what they'll say to treat it, and that I'll need to be off of it for 3 to 5 days. So after an x-ray and getting the, yup, it's sprained, keep doing what you're doing, I let them know that my boss asked for a note for missing a day off work to rest it. The doctor asked if I want to be at work to do what I can and stay off of it as best as possible. I said that's what I've been trying to do, so I'm fine with that, but I do have sick time if it would be more beneficial to be off of it for a couple of days. She comes back with a note that says I may return to work the following Monday. I took a picture and shot it to my boss man, just the photo. He replies, "What's wrong with the ankle?" which I met with no response, considering none's needed. He got his note. I just wanted 1 day of sick time, 8 hours. Now he's paying me 4 days, 32 hours, and he can't refuse a second of it. You know what? The boss got exactly what he asked for. OP went to the doctor, and now they're short-handed at work. Ain't that something? Like, considering the boss didn't like it when people took time off, I can't believe he didn't see the outcome. And this person shares their comment and says, I told my boss my back hurt and that I needed 2 days off. He said, you'd better bring me a doctor's note. So the doctor's office faxed him a note that diagnosed me with a pinched nerve in lumbar. 10 days bed rest. Karma's a beautiful thing. I've been working with a home health agency for the better part of 9 months. I work 12-hour days, with cases ranging from complex to simple. In that time, I've worked 11 unscheduled doubles and 42 additional 12-hour overtime shifts. I have used exactly 2 sick days. One for myself and one for my kid. I don't call out, I don't show up late, and I don't do the corner cutting they suggest. I take vacation time on my off days. I've saved them on 3 specific occasions from failing audits. I picked up so much because A, the money's nice, B, I legitimately care about the well-being of my patients, and C, they begged me. You see, the company I worked for likes to take on new clients without having enough staff to cover that patient. And then they freak out and offer bonuses for us to pick up. These are government contracted jobs with big DOE bucks coming in. If they can't prove the patient's taken care of, they are fined heavily. Too many fines and they're blackballed from taking new DOE clients at all. Now here's the thing, this company is so poorly run that it's a joke. They have 8 schedulers, but still send mass texts every single day, asking us to pick up all hours of the day and night. They often double book or randomly change schedules without informing clients or nurses. They also underpay for my area. Not much, but paying $4 less per hour is a big deal. They also won't respond to your questions, calls, or texts for days to weeks at a time. I've been looking around for a while and I found a company that pays more, has good leadership, and they said they'd have me on the ground running closer to home if I just went through their hiring program. So I agreed, and I've been an employee with them for about a month, just no hours worked yet. Back to my malicious compliance. I knew that I would be out of town for a couple of days, and I have 9 days worth of PTO banked. I decide to help them out and ask for 3 days off. I assumed that that would give them enough time to fill my spot. I did this on September 13th, and the days I requested are October 12th, 13, and 14. It's a mini vacation for my family since I worked all summer. On Monday, I received a nasty email about the final day for PTO request being September 10. I let the manager know that I was trying to help them out by giving them time to fill it. She shot back with how selfish it was of me to leave her short-handed. She rejected my paid time off request. On Tuesday, I showed up at the office to discuss this little frustration. I mentioned my exemplary work history and intention of making things easier for them. She then slams the table with her balled fist and said, "You will work those days. I don't care if you have a planned trip to Australia, you will be there. If you don't like it, you can leave." It was her nasty smirk that set me off. So I stood up, took a mint and said, "As you wish. I expect all my paid time off to be on my next paycheck, in accordance with our state's PTO laws. I hope you can fill the opening on such short notice." And the look of horror on her face was more valuable than the paid time off. In the past 24 plus hours, I've received 19 voicemails asking if I could come into work because they're short. They were practically begging me. Tonight's my first night with the new company. It ends up being $6 an hour more and 48 minutes each way, which is way closer to home. And I get paid 40 hours, even though I work 36. Be careful what you wish for. You may just get it. Now that is a moment to savor, and I know that some people dream of doing this to their bosses, and I absolutely love bully bosses getting what they deserve. And clearly with the 19 missed voicemails begging OP to come back, they knew OP was a hard one to replace. And that's the thing, like, people should learn to recognize their good employees when they're there, not when they're gone. But yeah, glad to hear that OP left that crap show to be much closer to home, to get paid more, and they work substantially less. Sounds like a huge win. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our /malicious compliance. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy stories. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, it's in our /malicious compliance, another one, where bad Karens are getting taught lessons. It's such a wild episode, so go check it out if you haven't. And myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.